Welcome back to the Morning Blend. If you ask me, I would tell you that screw caps on wine were invented because they make opening the bottle easier, maybe because the wine is cheap. Well, as you're about to find out, both of those ideas, I'm wrong on both accounts.
I don't know. I think it's easier, though.
You might definitely be right on easier.
That one. Yeah. All right. Well, we decided to call in an expert to answer our questions and yours. It's Jessica Bell, and she is the owner of My Wine School. She's also a wine educator, a wine food and travel journalist, and she has a diploma in wine and spirits. She knows everything about wine.
I'll let you guys do the honors and open this one.
Awesome.
We hoard your knowledge. I mean, anytime you're here, we ask a million questions. We get you on the weekends sometimes, and we can't get enough because you really know your stuff when it comes to wine.
I've drank a lot of wine. I'm guilty of that.
Okay.
So there's, a lot of people want to know about screw caps versus corks, and there really isn't a right or wrong answer here. I think what's important to know is why they use one or the other, and then you can make a decision about if it's important to you. And for me, it's really not. What's more important is what's in the bottle and what it tastes like.
Why were they invented? Is it because initially was it cheap wine, or was it because they're easier?
No, what's interesting is that first, to understand why we use corks is really interesting. So you can have a cork if you want. Put a cork in it.
Put a cork in it.
The reason why corks were used for over hundreds of years is that they expand when wet. So they create an airtight seal naturally as long as you store a wine with a cork in it on its side, because it'll be wet where the cork is.
Oh, that's why wine is always on its side. Did you know that? I did not know that.
And so only because you've said it once before.
Okay.
I wasn't listening, or maybe
been at
I
your
had
party.
too much wine. Oh, yeah.
So that's why we use cork. I mean, it's an amazing material in that it expands, but then it's easy to come out. If you've ever used a plastic cork, those are really difficult to come out because they have to get the airtight seal, but then they're so tight that you can't even get them out.
Yeah.
It just goes to show how amazing this natural material is.
But I think corks sometimes are the bane of a wine lover's existence because sometimes they break off. Sometimes if you don't get the cork in the exact right place, I think they can be as much of a problem as a good thing.
And well, what's interesting about that is usually the problems come from not being stored correctly. So they're not stored on their side, and so they dry out and they crumble when you take them out. Or they're not being used, they're not being made of real cork. So they call them composite corks. That's where you get your problems. Cork in general is just the most perfect when used right.
What about what they say about tainted, like a tainted cork? Because see, I see red wine on this. Does that mean it's tainted?
No, it actually should be like this. It actually should
not like
be
this.
Right. It should be red, and it should be wider at the end. So when you go to a restaurant and they give you a cork, they're in essence showing you that we stored the wine correctly. Because your wine should be red if it's red wine, or wet if it's a white wine, and it should be thicker at the side, or wider rather, at the side that was touching the wine.
So it's wider,
Because then you know it had an airtight seal.
Okay.
And the reason why people have invested in screw caps is because along with this great material, there's some inherent problems. And it's because there's a taint that can get into a cork that will taint your wine irreversibly. And that's called cork taint. And this, I know.
The scientific name is cork taint.
Right.
All right, let's taste it.
It taints your wine and it taints your cork. It's your cork taint.
What's the deal with this?
This is actually an Australian Shiraz Viognier blend.
Okay.
And the reason why I brought wine from Australia is that Australia, New Zealand, this is a really good one. This is Yalumba. You can find this at Sendik's and Whole Foods and Two Cellars in Franklin.
Wow.
And this one is from Australia, where they do a lot of screw cap closures. Both Australia and New Zealand are really well known for their screw cap closures. And I brought it because this is about $15, under $15. So I want to show you that it's not always cheap wine, and it's not always what people think is inferior wine. This is a really tasty wine.
Tastes very dry to me. Okay.
Yes, this is definitely a dry wine. Screw caps and corks can close any kind of wine.
Okay.
So you can have a dry wine that's sealed with a screw cap, and vice versa with a cork.
How long will that last once you open it? Were you going to ask that too?
Yeah, the way you can determine how long a wine will last is to try it. Okay, right? That's the first thing, because it's not going to hurt you. If you like it, keep drinking it.
Okay.
But if you want to think about what makes...
Is there a rule of thumb?
Yes. The more intensely flavored a wine is, the longer it's going to last.
Okay.
Because once you open it, that flavor is going to decrease over time. So if you start at a higher intensity of flavor, you have more time for that flavor to dissipate.
Yeah. We're running out of time. We only have a few seconds. Vintage is the year that something is made. How do you find out the best vintage?
Right. Well, vintage is actually the year in which the grapes were harvested.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, vintages don't really matter if you're buying wine, say, under $15.
Okay.
Where it does matter is when you're investing a little bit more money in wines, and they're in regions that you really like. For those regions, then yes, maybe you look at, if you go online, look for Robert Parker's vintage chart. I use it all the time. There's no way you can memorize all the vintages. So if it's a region that I'm not overly familiar with and I want to check out the 1996 vintage, then I'll check out Robert Parker's vintage chart, and it's all color coded. You can use it after a couple glasses of wine.
And that's the year that the season was great, the wine, the grapes were perfect, right? That's why it's potentially a good vintage.
Right, and vice versa. I mean, sometimes if there's too much rain, the grapes will get diluted. If there's too much sunshine, sometimes that's a bad thing. It all depends.
And with the screw cap, you don't have to worry about storing it on its side then.
Exactly.
Right? So that's a benefit if you want to have
point.
it standing up. It doesn't necessarily mean it lasts longer or any shorter. It doesn't have anything to do with cork screw cap.
Screw caps typically are great for wines that are not going to be aged. Some evidence says that you can age a screw cap wine over 5 to 10 years. Other people say no. So if I'm going to invest $30 to $50 in a wine to age 5 to 10 years, I'm still going to go with the cork, just because hundreds of years have proven that corks can age it. But people will say that screw caps can age 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
I think it's amazing that we spent all this time talking about screw caps when we
And that's
probably
it.
didn't even get to everything related to screw
We didn't.
caps
Right.
and corks, which is awesome. It's so great to have you here.
Oh,
Thank
thanks
you
so
so
much.
much.
I always enjoy it.
Jessica has an awesome website. It's mywineschool.com. You can actually go there, check out some of her webisodes right there online, and find out so much more about her and her school and classes and where you can find her. So thank you so much.
Thank you.